Welcome back, everyone. Today I continue my journey in the FIDE Rapid Chess Championship being held here in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Now, as you guys know, I drew all 4 games yesterday, and I was hoping that today would be a little bit different. So in the first round of the day, the 10th round of the tournament, I was paired with the white pieces against Alexander Indijic, a very strong player from the great country of Serbia. Now, I have played him many times in Title Tuesday, so he's a player that I'm pretty familiar with. I do believe, however, this is the first time that we met over the board. So the game starts out with d4, knight to f6, I play c4 here, and now I place e6, knight c3, bishop b4, Nimzo Indian defense, e3, castles, and now I play this bishop d2 move. Now I did play this with some success. I won a game against Parham Maghsoodloo in the Tata Steel Rapid event in India, and I also won against David Navarra in the Chess Global Championship, so I thought, why not try it again? So the game continues with b6, I play knight to f3, bishop to b7, bishop d3, all very standard so far. And now we get d6, castles, knight d7, a3, takes. Now here white has the bishop pair. However, black is very solid. He can play for either c5 or e5. Now in this position, knight to e4 is also a very interesting move, as was played by my opponent, because if I try to keep the bishop pair with bishop to e1, now black can play f5 with the idea of rook f6 and rook g6, and potentially a lot of pressure on this long diagonal from b7 to g2. Additionally, black can also go knight f6 and maybe g5, g4, so it's a very complex position with play for both sides. Now, one thing that I know from having played various Nimzo Indian structures in the past is that if we reach a position where white gets the bishop pair on b2 and d3, generally these ideas with rook f6, g6 are not as effective, because at some point white can play d5, opening up the long diagonal for the dark square bishop, and also shutting off the bishop on b7 by closing this long light square diagonal from b7 to g2. However, in this situation, to keep the bishops on the board, I have to go to e1 instead of b2, and I really wasn't sure what was going on here. I thought maybe I could play knight d2, but after queen g5, position felt very complex, and I didn't really know what the plan was for white. Additionally, in a rapid game, I felt that the moves are a little bit easier for black here, and white has to take time and figure out what the most effective plan is. So instead, I chose to trade on e4. I played knight d2 here, and the idea is very simple. Even though I've given up the bishop pair, if black retreats with bishop e7, I can go e4 and get a big white center. Now again, computer is not super enthused by this. It thinks that after f5, black is all right, but at any rate, I thought there was some play. Instead, my opponent plays bishop d3, I play rook to e1, and now I plays this horrible move, pawn to d5. Now, for whatever reason, I simply was not sharp here, and I missed a winning move on the spot. What I should have done is I should have traded here, and after pawn takes, there's this move queen to b3, attacking the pawn on d5, and now if black plays a move like knight to f6, I have bishop b4, attacking the rook on f8, but also the bishop on d3, and probably the only move black can play here to not lose a lot of material is bishop c4, but after takes, and rook e8, after a move like rook a c1 or even f3 and e4, building a big white center, white is simply up a pawn here and should be completely winning. For whatever reason, after d5 was played, I used 20 seconds, but then I played b3. Now again, it was the first game of the day. Maybe I just wasn't completely there. Whatever it was, I simply overlooked the c takes d5. That being said, it's still a very dynamic position. So here a5 is played, I go rook c1, c6, I play bishop to b2 here, rook c8, and now I go e4, and in this position, black has to simplify here. We trade off all these pieces on e4, but white maintains some central control with these pawns on c4 and d4, and long term, the goal is to play d5 and open up the long diagonal for the bishop on b2. So the game continues with knight f6, I go rook to e3, again, keeping this idea of d5 in my back pocket, maybe going for rook g3 and putting a lot of pressure towards that pawn on g7. So b5 is played here, I go a4, we trade, and in this position I felt that I was doing very well, because here the a5 pawn is a weakness. I can always go bishop c3. Additionally, if black plays a move like c5 here, there always are moves like rook d3, and after takes here, this diagonal is very, very scary. Additionally, I have a passed c pawn that I can rush up the board, so I thought that I'd be doing very well here. That being said, I think that c5 was the best move in the position from a practical standpoint, because in the game after rook b8 and bishop c3 here, the a5 pawn is always a permanent weakness, and I'm always looking to play d5 and open up the other diagonal. So rook a8 is played here. I go queen c2, queen d6, h3 here, creating some lift for the king on h2, additionally stopping knight g4 as well. So a dual purpose move. We get rook f d8, I play rook to e5, targeting the pawn on a5, queen c7 is played, and now I go rook c to e1. I'd love to play queen d2 here, putting more pressure on the pawn on a5, but then black can play queen takes rook, pawn takes queen, rook takes queen, bishop takes rook, and knight d7. And here I have this weak pawn on e5, weak pawn on a4 as well, and black should be completely fine. So instead I play rook ce1, lining up the double stack. Additionally, black can never really play a move like c5 because I just take, and I just want to go queen d2 next move, but the rook on e5 will be protected. So we get h6 here, I play queen d2, he goes queen to b6, and here for whatever reason I play this move rook 1 e3. Now my initial idea was to play this move rook takes a5, but for some reason after takes, queen takes d4, in this position I wasn't really sure what was going on. I thought that I could maybe trade here and play a move like rook to a1, followed by something like bishop to d8, but again I felt that after rook to d4 here, bishop to b6, c5, takes, and something like rook c4, I wasn't sure how much better this was. Again, I can play something like bishop e3, rook c6, a5, rook a6, but with the knight coming to d5 here and black able to bring the king to the center very quickly, I'm not sure if it's enough to win. That being said, I probably should have done this because after takes and queen d4 here in this position, there's a very nice move, which is to play this sort of counterintuitive move, rook to d1. And after queen takes d2, rook takes d2, black has to trade everything, go knight to d7, a5, and then play knight b8 here. And after a move like bishop b4 followed by bishop d6, long term this should be winning for white because you can put the bishop here, play f4, and slowly bring the king towards the center. Again, it's not easy or trivial, but long term this should be a technical win. However, I felt that at this point I didn't see a clear-cut win, and without seeing a clear-cut win, I thought in a rapid game you don't want to oversimplify too quickly. So I play rook 1 to e3, trying to lift the rook to g3 and put more pressure on the g file towards this king on g8. Get queen b1, king h2, and now he plays king h7. I go queen to e2, lining up a triple stack. Now the reason behind queen 2 is quite simple. I wanted to take on a5 here, but there's always this pesky knight to e4 move, which forks the bishop and the queen. So I thought by going queen e2, I sidestep knight e4, and now again, I can threaten to take the pawn on a5. Additionally, I guard the pawn on c4, and I still have rook g3 ideas. So we get rook d to b8. I play rook c5, rook to c8 here, and now I play this move queen f3. Now what I probably should have done here is I should have played this move d5, because after pawn takes pawn, rook takes rook, rook takes rook, I can take and then take on d5. But again, in this position after pawn takes pawn, I didn't see a clear-cut way to win here. However, after queen to h5, if I had used a little bit more time, I probably would have realized that in this position, black simply has too many weaknesses here. All of his pawns are weak, his king is also weak, and this should just be close to winning. One sample line would be rook to f8, queen takes d5, and a move like queen to b4 here, but then there's queen f5 check followed by rook g3, which would lead to a checkmate, of course, with queen f6 and queen g7. Additionally, black can also play a move like queen to b8 here, but after g3, queen b6, and rook f3, it's very hard to believe that in a rapid game, especially, that black can really defend here after king g7 and a move like rook f5, putting pressure on a5, but also guarding the pawn on f2. And perhaps there are chances for black to save this, but in a rapid game where time is getting a little bit low, I don't think it's realistic. Unfortunately, I hesitated here, and instead of playing d5, I played queen f3. Now, this is one thing that I think I did not do very well throughout the event, is too frequently I was trying to play perfect chess and not even give a sliver of counterplay. I thought I could maybe squeeze this where my opponent has no hope. So this was a little bit dubious of me. We got queen b8, I go g3, queen to b6 here, guarding both pawns on a5 and c6. I go rook to e1, and this is where I really lost my concentration. Now in this position, the initial idea was to play rook to e2 and go rook b2 to hit the queen on b6, but then for whatever reason I thought, well wait, I can go rook e1 with queen d3 and rook to b1. Now again, this does not quite work out. What I should have played was rook e2 here, and the reason I should have played this is that black plays a move like knight d7 attacking the rook. There's a very cool line, I thought, with queen takes pawn, knight takes rook, and this great move queen takes g7 check, takes, and now I take the knight with check. King moves, I take, and after rook c, b8, c5 here, protected pawn on b6, and this should just be cleanly winning for white with no counterplay whatsoever. However, I played rook e1, and as I said, as soon as I played, I was like, wait a second, why did I go to e1 when e2 gives me the easy square on b2? Plays king g8, and now I go king g2, which is just a bad move. What I should have played here was maybe a move like g4, maybe a move like queen d3 back to keep the game going. But already here it's very tricky because knight d7 is now a big threat since the pawn is guarded, and I don't have this rook to the b file, kicking the queen off b6. Whereas on rook e2, king g8, rook b2, white is simply much better here. So I played this move, rook to e1, as I said. Already here after king g8, I was unhappy. I played this king g2 move, not knowing quite what to do, and now he finds knight d7, rook h5, and he plays queen b3. He does not play knight f6 here attacking the rook, because now I can actually sacrifice, take the knight, and d5 will be coming in a move or two, and black will be getting checkmated on the dark squares. So instead he plays queen b3. Now I go queen d3 here. Sort of desperation. I was getting a little bit low on time, a little bit unsure, but now after knight b6, all of the advantage is simply gone. Now I played this move rook b1 here. I could have played d5 with the idea that after pawn takes, I have queen d4, lining up the battery and threatening checkmate on g7. But the problem is he can take the pawn, attacking the knight, attacking the bishop on c3. And now I have nothing better than take on e6, and after queen c3, takes, queen d7, king g8, I can go queen e6, king h7, and force a draw with takes, and queen to f5, king h8, rook e7, queen g7, takes, and now I can simply check on e5, maybe even g4, but with the king all alone here on g7 and h8, it should be a draw. But of course I did not want to draw here, so I decided to play rook b1, gambiting a pawn here. We got queen takes pawn, we trade, I go rook c5, knight to d6, king to f3, stopping knight e4, knight to f5 is played, I go king to e4. Now this move I was very unhappy with. I thought I should have just played rook a1 right away to guard the pawn and then go after the pawn on a5, but I play king e4, knight to e7 is played, I go rook a1. Of course I don't trade here right away because after takes there's rook to a8, and now we'll lose the pawn on a4. So I play rook a1, knight to d5, bishop d2, we get rook b8. Now I simply go king f3 here. If I were to take the pawn on a5 after this move rook to b3, I have to play bishop e3, but now after a move like f5, king f3, and something like g5, it's really hard for me to use this outside a pawn and push it up the board because black has a lot of threats involving this f5, f4 move. So instead I go king f3 here, trying to bring the king back. He goes rook b3, I go king g2, rook to d3 is played, I take, he takes, now I go bishop e1. I could have played bishop c3 here, but after knight takes c3, rook takes c3, eventually black will be able to trade the c for the a pawn with something like rook d7, a5, c5, a6, rook a7, and eventually we'll reach some endgame like this where it's 4 versus 3, and this is a theoretical draw. But again, I don't want to draw here. I figure at this point it's better to keep the bishop on the board, try to push the pawn, create some practical chances, and maybe go for a win. Obviously a draw would not help my tournament situation either, so I figured who cares? If I lose, I lose, but I have to take the chance. So the game continues with rook a8. I play a5, he goes rook a6, rook c1, knight to e7, I go rook b1, rook d7 is played here, I check, king h7, and here I played h4. I could have played rook to b6 as well, but after rook takes b6, takes rook b7, bishop a5, I didn't really see how I'm making progress with black slowly bringing the king over to the center of the board and then putting the knight on d5. So I play h4, f6, and now I played rook c1, which is a crazy move. I should have played h5 here, and this was actually my initial intention. If you guys do watch a video replay, you'll see that I reached for the h-pawn, then didn't do it, and the reason was I thought that after rook to d5, takes, knight takes d5, I wasn't sure how to continue, but oddly enough, after king f1 here, white is actually better because the black king is stuck in the corner and it can't come out easily. Instead, I played rook c1, which is a horrible move because now black gets h5, and the point is that the king will be able to come to the f7 or f5 square unimpeded here because he has the pawn on h5. So I go rook b1, knight d5, rook c1, king g6, king f3, king f5. Again, if I had played h5, none of this would have ever been possible. King e2, e5 is played, I go f3 here, plays e4, I take, I check, king f3, king g6, rook b1. At this point, we sort of start shuffling around here. At this point, again, this position is objectively a draw. Both sides can't do a whole lot, but I figured I have to keep playing, keep trying as hard as I can to make something happen, maybe try to win the game, because as I said, at this point in the tournament, if I don't win this game, I know there's zero chance realistically of me having a shot at first place. So I go rook a1, rook a6. We play a bunch of moves here, again, just shuffling our pieces back and forth. And then at a certain point right around here, We trade the rooks on c3. Again, position is still very balanced here. The pawns on g7 and f6 are stable, but black can't really push them easily without creating a weakness. And also the rook is tied down to defending this pawn on a5. So we get knight e3 here. I go rook b2, knight d5, bishop to e1, king f5, king g2, king e4, king e2. And now here my opponent misses maybe the one chance to where he could have created some winning chances if he had played this move c5. But again, after rook c2, rook c6, a6 takes, rook to c4 check, important in between move, king e5 and rook takes c5. So this still should be a draw with perfect play, but with an extra pawn and a knight versus bishop, only black can play for a win. Fortunately, he goes rook a7 here. I go rook c2, rook a6, I go king e2, knight e7, rook b2, knight f5, and now I play rook b7, goes c5, king to d1. Now at this point I've started to make some mistakes. You're probably already here, it's a little bit out of control, and I should have just played rook c5, preventing this pawn from being pushed and also targeting the pawn, but both of us were low on time, and at this point I figured I should try and go for counterplay at all costs. So we get knight f5, rook b7, c5, king d1, plays g5 here, which is a mistake. Apparently after king d3, rook to d7, black can now play king to c4, or maybe knight d4, I guess king c4, and for whatever reason black has a big advantage. Again, to me it doesn't seem obvious because the pawn on g7 is weak, pawn on a5 is guarded by the bishop, so it's hard for me to understand why this should just be winning, but the computer apparently thinks this is a big advantage. Instead, g5 is played here, and now I go rook h7. Now what I could have done here is I could have played rook b6, which is a very cheeky move, because after takes knight d6, if this is played, I can play this very funny looking move g4, and after takes h5, king f5, I go bishop to g3, I think, and knight b7, I can go, oh, I thought I could maybe go king c2, although I guess the king can run around here, so it's still very, very tricky here. Apparently bishop c3 is drawing, because I have the wide peepos, but very, very tricky, very hard to play with limited time, and I didn't find it. Instead, I played rook h7, which I thought was a very human move, attacking this weak pawn on h5. So after playing rook to h7, we get king to d3. I trade, I take, he goes knight e3, king c1, knight c2, and now here I played this move bishop f2, and I offered my opponent a draw because both pawns are under attack, and after rook takes a5, rook takes g5, you can't push the pawn because you lose the rook. If you check, I go king b2. If c4 here, I have rook to d5 check, king e4, and then rook d2. Again, this should be a draw. And so here I offer a draw, and surprisingly to me, my opponent declined. Instead, he plays rook f6 here, and now I take the pawn on c5. He goes king c3 here. What he probably should have played here was he should have gone check, rook f5, bishop b6, and now there's actually a very funny checkmate with rook b5, king c1, and knight to a3. So he probably should have played this. However, here I can go bishop e7, check, and now after king to a2, takes, rook b5, king a2, this still should be a draw, even though my king is stuck on the edge of the board. Instead, he plays king c3, I go rook h1, and now he plays this move rook f5, which is not necessarily a horrible move itself, but it now gives me some chances to play on with bishop b6, because after rook b5 here, I could have played this move rook to h8, and now after knight b4, this is still probably a draw, because I go check, king d3, check, king c3, and then maybe king d1 here. But again, after this move knight to d5, black probably is still holding the draw. At any rate, this is of course what I should have played, but instead I played this move g4, and now there's this tricky move knight to b4. I have to be very, very careful here, because initially I thought, well, I can just check and go king d1, but after king d1, there's now rook to b2, threatening a checkmate here with rook d2, and after bishop e3, black probably still has to make a draw with rook a2 and rook take, or not rook a5, sorry, king c4 here, and then taking the pawn on a5, and it should be a draw. Again, at this point with limited time on the clock, you really want to be very careful, and at this point I thought, you know what, I can't take a risk and make some kind of blunder and get checkmated, so I played king d1. Now he goes knight to c6. Very pragmatic move here, by the way, because now I can no longer guard this extra pawn. Bishop can't really go to d8, and e3 is a move, but of course that just, the pawn on g5 is guarded, so it does nothing in any of these situations. So I play rook h3, king b4, king e2 takes, and now I play bishop d8 here. Of course, I could trade the bishop for the knight. It would be a draw, but I thought, you know what, I'll try to win this pawn, and again, at all costs, keep the game going. But my opponent does not miss anything here. Finds this knight c4, knight d2, and now he goes king to c4, and I have to take here. If I try to play something like, I guess there's nothing I can really do. It's just going to go knight e4, king d3. There's nothing I can do other than take the pawn, because simply what am I playing for? So I take, and now he takes with the rook. If he plays knight e4, there's one last little gasp here where I can go king f3, because after knight takes g5, I have king f4, which would actually win the game. But of course, even here, black can take with the rooks. If I take the knight, he takes the pawn on g4. So unfortunately, he plays this order, which also, of course, is fine. I take, and the game ends very peacefully in a draw here after 114 moves. So what to say about this game? Obviously, it's a big pity that in the opening on move number, I think it was move number 13 after d5, for whatever reason, whether it's I wasn't sharp or whatever is going on in my mind, I simply missed this queen b3, bishop b4 idea. If I had seen that, I think there's a very, very high chance I win this game, maybe like 90% plus. If I win this game, I think the whole day is definitely different. So this is the first game. It ends in a draw, my 6th straight draw in a row. Obviously not happy with it, but kind of resigning myself at this point to where I just simply play it game by game, but don't really feel any pressure, any stress heading into the home stretch. So in the 11th round, I had black against the Azerbaijani kid. I think it's Elan Suleimani. Now, if I'm not mistaken, for those of you guys who watch on YouTube quite frequently, I think there was a video of a game where I beat him in the Dutch in a title Tuesday, maybe about like 4 or 5 months ago. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure at any rate that I'm not mistaken. So when he played d4, having that in mind, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to play the Dutch. Of course, I could be wrong. It could be a different Azerbaijani kid, but I'm pretty sure this was the one. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to play King's Indian and keep it going. So I play this King's Indian with this very funky c6. Normally e5 and c5 are the principal pawn pushes here. You can go e5 or c5, but I thought, you know what, at this point it doesn't matter. It's time to experiment. Maybe I can trick him. So I play c6, a6 with the idea of playing for b5. Now here he plays a4, which is always a double-edged move, because even though black loses a tempo with a6 and a5, there's now always a great bastion for the knight on b4. So the game continues with bishop e3, knight a6, bishop e2, castles, knight d2, knight d7, castles, e5. He goes d5 here, and now I play his move knight c5. Perhaps I should have played f5 here in this position, but I really wasn't sure what was going on after takes f4, and so I thought it's really tricky, really hard to judge what the balance is, and also I was trying to move quickly here, so I decided to just play natural moves, and I played knight d to c5. We get knight b3 here, I trade, now I go c5 here, walking up the queen side. I'm preparing to just play for a king side attack with f5 and f4. So he goes knight b5, play f5, takes, he goes f4, play e4, he plays bishop d2, and now here I play this move rook f6 after a very short think. What I should have done here was probably play knight c7 or knight b4, but at this point I was on autopilot, and I figured, you know what, just try to play quickly, play logical moves, and go from there, since obviously nothing seemed to be working. So I played rook f6, and as soon as I played this move, I realized that my opponent has this very awkward looking move, pawn to g4, pushing the pawns in front of his king. Now this move is actually very, very strong, and during the game, the more that my opponent was thinking, the more unhappy I started feeling, but I figured, you know what, it's an awkward looking move. He's playing someone who's much higher rated. It's not realistic, and sure enough, he played king h2. If he had played g4 here, it's very hard to know what I would have done. Probably I would have played something like knight b4, and after g5, gone rook f8 here, but with white being able to play h4 and the king side being closed, I think white, if anybody, is for choice, and this great knight on b5 always is targeting the pawn on d6. So while I think I still probably could have salvaged this, it would have been difficult. Fortunately, he plays king h2. I go bishop d7, rook a3 here. Now at this point, g4 is not really a move, because now I think I can take, and I think I have maybe g4 is still a good move here. For some reason, I thought that after takes, there was something with like rook h6 or g6 and queen h4, but apparently after queen h4, there's simply rook h1. So g4 again would have been very strong, but he played rook a3 here. Now I go rook g6. The idea behind rook a3 is to move the queen and then swing the rook to g3. So I go rook g6, stopping g4. He plays bishop c3. I take on b5, he takes, and now I get my knight to b4. And already here I was feeling fairly optimistic about the position, except for the fact that there's one problem, which is that it's a very closed position. There's only one open g file here. The a file is semi-open, but again, I have a pawn in the way, so I can't use it. And already here I was becoming a little bit pessimistic that this was going to end up being a very locked position, and there were going to be serious drawing tendencies. So he plays bishop h5, rook h6, he trades, check, king h8 here, and now he goes bishop f7. Now this is a fairly committal move. I thought that if he had played queen c3 here, after queen f6, if he trades and goes bishop to e2 here, I again was very unhappy. I thought that even if I get the knight to d4, he puts the bishop on d1, he can blockade the e3 square, the a file as well, and I already thought that this was going to end in a draw. So after king h8, he plays bishop f7. Now I get knight c2, trying to jump with the pony to d4. I could have played knight d3 as well, but after queen g5, rook to f6, bishop e6, I wasn't really sure what was going on. There are threats like rook g3 looming here, and also the f5 pawn is very weak. Now perhaps in retrospect, I should have gone for this anyway, because at least here the position becomes imbalanced, and it's not going to just automatically be easy to play, where white can make a draw. But instead I went knight c2, trying to put the knight on d4. I thought this also was logical, but unfortunately after queen g5, I play rook f6 here. Now I could have taken on a3, but after queen takes h6, knight takes c4, bishop to e6. Again, I was very unsure what was happening in this position, and after queen f8, queen h5, the pawns are very, very weak on h7, f5, and e4. And I thought, again, if anybody could be better, it's probably white. And additionally, it's also going to be much easier for white to play. He's going to just try to take these pawns and look for an open e-file and look for a checkmate. That's all white has to look at. Whereas for me, I have to figure out what my plan is. None of my moves here are obvious whatsoever. So after knight c2, queen g5, probably I could have taken, again, I played rook f6 here, and after rook c3, knight d4, bishop h5. Already here, I was very unhappy, because even though I have a great knight here and a nice protected pass pawn on the e-file, the a-file is closed, the e-file is closed, he can always sort of guard on the g-file, and I already had resigned myself to the fact that I was going to draw yet again. So I played b6, rook e1. Now here I play this move, rook to a7, rook g3, and now I blunder with a4. Now the funny thing about this position here is that somewhere around here I had this feeling that I was going to miss some tactic, but in my mind when I played a4, the only tactic that I saw was bishop f7. Now here he actually had a win with this move, bishop to e8, because it cuts off the queen from guarding the g8 square, white's threatening checkmate. If I go rook f8 to cover the g8 square, I lose my queen. If I take the bishop, I lose the rook, and then I get checkmated on g7. And there simply is no defense here to the checkmate on g8 or losing the queen on d8. In this game, it seems that I forgot my right triangle theory, and it very nearly cost me. Fortunately, after a4, he played rook a1. Now I go rook f8, he trades, and the game peters out here. He plays rook a3. I bring my king to the center. I play rook e7 here, hoping that he'll take on a4 with the rook, because then I can go e3, king e1, and rook g8, followed by e2, which would be winning. But of course, he can just play rook e3, and the problem is, after going rook g8, again, I was hoping that he might take on a4, because here at least I thought I had tricks like rook g7, g4, takes, now I can maybe go h5, g5, and king f5. Again, after king e3, h4, white probably is better here, but I figured whatever, I would play it anyway. Unfortunately, he just plays rook e3. I go h5 here. If I play rook g7, white always has g3, and white is probably actually winning here. So instead I play h5, hoping that he'll maybe take the pawn, and I can get knight c2 with a fork of the rooks. Or that he'll take on a4 maybe, and here I can maybe take and get this pawn to h4 with rook a8, and maybe there's some chances of something happening here. But unfortunately, again, my opponent was very happy to just lock it up with h4. I go rook a8, rook a3. Now again, he could have played rook g3 and maybe tried to play rook g5 and get some kind of advantage, but still I figured, you know what, after knight b3, at least the game goes on, and I was not trying to be objective here. I was just trying to create play. Didn't really care if it wasn't good. As long as there's some play and I could maybe confuse him, that's what I wanted. But he's having none of it. He plays rook a3, rook e7, and now we basically just end up repeating, and there's nothing I can do. I draw this game as well. That makes 7 in a row. In the next game, I would draw with the white pieces against Giga Kuparadze, another player who I've played many times in Title Tuesday on chess.com. What to do. And then, of course, I'll go to the final game, which was against Vasip Durarbayli, another player I'm very familiar with. I've played him many times online. Very, very strong grandmaster from Azerbaijan, who I believe now is living in St. Louis in the United States. And this game, I think, sort of epitomizes the entire tournament for me. It's very, very symbolic, which is why I'll show the game. So it starts with e4. I play e5, knight f3, knight c6. He plays bishop b5, the classic Ruy Lopez or the Spanish opening. And now here I play a6. Now, of course, I could have played knight f6 in the Berlin, but I think there's a very good chance that probably the game would have ended with a very classic forced draw variation here, where you repeat in the center of the board with these various queen moves. So this is sort of why I chose to play a6. I was looking for a game. He goes bishop a4, d6, castles, and now I go bishop to d7. And now here my opponent plays the only line which pretty much immediately kills him. He plays d4, and now I play b5. Now, there are some moves that black can play here, like knight to f6 is one move, or potentially taking on d4. Again, these moves are a little bit dubious. White has a significant advantage here, and I felt that at this point, when he was thinking for a little bit before playing d4, I think he used maybe like 10 seconds or 15 seconds, I was trying to figure it out. Well, do I play the move that I know allows some kind of repetition, or do I gamble? And while I wanted to gamble the move like e takes d4 takes knight d4 and maybe knight f6 and bishop e7, the play is a little bit too easy for white here with like rook e1, bishop e7. I think white can go like knight c3, bishop f4, and e5 very, very quickly. And at this point, even though I have the bishop pair, white is a little bit better, and it's very easy for white to play. He's looking for e5, queen f3, rook d1. Very, very simple moves, and I just thought against a player of Vasif's caliber, it was asking for trouble. So instead I play b5 here. He goes bishop b3. I play knight takes pawn. We trade, and now he plays this move c3. If white were to capture the pawn, this actually loses the game because I can go c5, attacking the queen. And after queen d1, I have c4, trapping the bishop on b3. However, he plays c3 here, and now I have to take the pawn. If I play d3 here, for example, after queen d3, knight f6, white can go queen to g3, followed by rook e1 and e5. And at this point, white is much better. So I take the pawn on c3, and here Vasif plays queen d5, and very, very disappointing for me. I have no choice but to repeat with bishop e6, queen c6, and blocking. If I block with the queen, I lose the rook. If I play a pawn cloud with king e7, after knight takes c3, I have no development here, and I can resign. Of course, if I want to do this, I should have just played the pawn cloud on move 2. That would have been better. So after queen c6, I have to go bishop d7, queen d5, and make a repetition. And with that, I end the tournament with 9 draws in a row, 4 draws for a second day in a row. And I finished somewhere around maybe 40th place. I don't know the exact breakdown of where I end. So overall, very disappointing. Quite simply, I had a couple of opportunities. I would say the game against Predka, the first game yesterday with the white pieces, and also the first game today against Indijic with the white pieces. Those were 2 games where I really needed to win. If I had won either of those games, I think both of the days would have been different. And I probably would have played against players who with the white pieces would have been more ambitious against me, since I would have been on the higher tables. Alas, it was not meant to be. So really a disappointing result overall. The bright side is that I didn't lose any games, obviously. I went undefeated in all 13 games. And ironically, the only game where I was in a lot of trouble was the first round game against Amin. So overall, I would say that I'm happy with sort of the positions I got. I do think if these games have been blitz games, I would have definitely won quite a few of these. In Rapid, it didn't work out that way. My opponents defended very well. Have to give them credit for that. And it just wasn't meant to be. So overall, there are a few positives. Obviously, it's not the result I wanted, but at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. So we now move on to the Blitz tomorrow, which will be starting, I think, local time again at 3 p.m. There will be, I believe, 11 rounds tomorrow on day 1, and then 10 rounds on day 2. So sort of just trying to move past this result. Obviously, for me, it's not what I wanted, but it's not something that really I'm disappointed in. I simply had a couple of opportunities that I didn't convert, and then with the black pieces, I ran into the wrong opponents who were very, very solid, and that's sometimes how it goes. That is life. Can't really do anything about it. So we move on to the Blitz tomorrow. Really looking forward to it. I hope that I can win some games. If I draw 9 games in a row in the Blitz tomorrow, I will probably never play chess again. So I will leave you guys with that, because that will not happen. So at any rate, I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap. Obviously, the final day of the Rapid here. Tomorrow we play the Blitz, and this is the World Rapid and Blitz Championships. So if you guys have not hit that subscribe button below, make sure to hit that button now, and I'll be back tomorrow with a recap of the Blitz. Probably just pick a few select games, select moments. Hopefully it goes better than the Rapid did, but at any rate, I hope you guys have enjoyed these recaps, and we'll be back tomorrow. So have a good one. Bye.